importance of GCC is also being put in focus as Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits, in fact, the Gulf nation, and also at this point, the tracing back to the importance of the India-Kuwait ties. PM Modi has also said that the petrochemical sector in Kuwait offers another promising avenue for the collaboration and also for India's rapidly growing petrochemical industry to be in fact expected to reach $300 billion by the year 2025. Now it's time to shift our focus to more developments. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is featured on the headlines of the several Kuwaiti newspapers, from the Kuwait Times to the Arab Times to the Kuwait News Agency. The media in Kuwait has hailed the visit as a landmark moment. Headlines have focused on the Grand 26th Arabian Gulf Cup opening ceremony, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Mishal Al Ahmad Al Jaber Al Sabah. PM Modi attended the event as the guest of the honor of Kuwait's Emir, which allowed for the informal interaction with the country's leadership. Prime Minister, who became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Kuwait in 43 years, also extended his best wishes to all the countries taking part in the football tournament, one of the region's most promising sporting events, featuring 8 participating nations, including the GCC countries, Iraq and Yemen. But it's not just this that the articles have focused on. In fact, one newspaper contains a lengthy interview with PM Modi as well. My colleague Pia joins me for more on the broadcast. Pia, in fact, the coverage of the Kuwaiti media, in fact, also gives emphasis on how seriously this historic and ambitious visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been taken. And when we're talking about how landmark this visit means for even Kuwait and the GCC member council nations, what is in fact that you are picking up in this regard on the partnership between the two nations that has also been mentioned several times by Prime Minister Narendra Modi? And if we have to focus on the latest interview to the Kuwait media as well by PM Modi.
Indeed, Simran, as you aptly put it, headlines have been very, very positive about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Kuwait. You can see some of them flashing on your screens, whether it is the Kuwait Times that has in fact on its very front page spoken about PM Modi being the guest of honor at the Grand Arab Gulf Cup ceremony, the 26th ceremony that was held yesterday itself. He was specially invited by the Emir of Kuwait. Or it is the Arab Times that has also hailed this visit as a landmark moment, and there's also an interview that, as you've put it, by the Kuwaiti News Agency, where PM Modi has spoken in depth about bilateral ties. It seems that coverage from Kuwait in Kuwait by Kuwaiti media is very, very positive. It's of course a milestone moment because an Indian Prime Minister is visiting Kuwait after 43 years. So it's been 4 decades, and there's something that in fact Prime Minister Modi mentioned in his address to the diaspora yesterday. He was of course jesting and joking that it takes around 4 hours to get to fly from India from New Delhi to Kuwait, but it's taken a Prime Minister 4 decades to do so. But speaking about what he said yesterday, there are some statements that he's echoed in his interview with the Kuwaiti News Agency as well. He's spoken about how trade and commerce have been important pillars of the bilateral relationship between Kuwait and India. It's something that he mentioned yesterday, that we share civilizational ties, and these ties often hinge upon trade and commerce. Prior to independence as well, a lot of merchants from Kuwait would come to India. They'd trade in tea, they'd trade in spices, they'd also buy Indian textiles. They'd set up factories in Surat, in Mumbai as well, or Kolkata. They'd have their offices over there. So he said that the relationship relationship has transcended time, but that's not all. He's also stated that now, in today's time, he's happy to see made in India products, particularly automobile, electrical, mechanical, machinery, and telecom segments making new inroads in Kuwait. He's spoken in particular about India's skilled labor and how that can benefit Kuwait as well as benefit the world. He's spoken about how India considers the world one family, echoing our Vasudev Kutumbakam motto that we had emphasized upon last year when we were holding the G20 presidency. And speaking of presidency, what's interesting is, since you've mentioned the Gulf Cooperation Council, Kuwait is in fact the chair of the Gulf Cooperation Council. So, of course, Prime Minister Modi's visit is a bid for outreach towards the Middle East as well. He's thanked the Emir for his invitation, but he's also, in fact, spoken about Indian laborers in Kuwait. They form a sizable chunk of the population over there. Their effort is indispensable to the growth of Kuwait. This is something that he's highlighted in his speech yesterday. He's also met several laborers at the Gulf Speak camp yesterday. And, we've been seeing a lot of outreach from India towards the Middle East, whether it is Kuwait or it is the United Arab Emirates, when it comes to our laborers in particular and their welfare over there. Because remember, Simran, in June this year itself, about 45 Indian laborers had tragically lost their lives in a fire that had taken place in a building in Kuwait. The Prime Minister has spoken in length about this in the interview to the newspaper. He also spoke about it to the diaspora yesterday. And while doing so, he thanked the Kuwaiti authorities in particular for their prompt action as far as meting out justice is concerned. But taking a look at laborers in particular, around 90 lakh Indian workers are residing in labor camps in Gulf states. Now, what these Gulf states do, and Kuwait in particular does, is that the onus of responsibility lies upon the employers of these laborers. Their welfare and safety measures, that is the responsibility of the employers of all of these laborers. Now, what India is particularly doing is that India has dedicated labor wings in all Indian missions in Gulf countries. The Prime Minister has also spoken about there are several key portals, whether it is the MEA in aid of diaspora in distress or centralized public grievance redress and monitoring systems. So he's spoken about this in his speech yesterday, as well as the interview, that India is forever ready to take care of its citizens that are living abroad. There is, of course, a lot of concern with regards to the exploitation of these laborers that have come to light, especially in recent times, since media has been democratized with the availability of smartphones. There are also concerns with regards to confiscation of
All right,
passports that
Pia,
are
thank
taking
you
place.
for, in fact, giving us the in-depth analysis of, in fact, what has happened with the media in Kuwait taking the cognizance of and hailing the recent visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi as a landmark visit to Kuwait. Thank you for, in fact, joining us live. Now it's time to shift our focus to other developments. Assam